here and right now, because it's time to kick things off for round number 13 of GP Lyon. Let's get to it. Hello my friends and welcome to continued coverage of GP Lyon, coming your way live out of France. It's great to have you along, my friends. I'm glad you've chosen to join us this weekend, and we have got a barnstormer for you in the feature match area. Look at this. Mardu Pyromancer versus White-Blue Control. I'm very torn. Two of my very favourite decks in the format, Simon, and Calligaro already off to a great start with a Faithless Looting. What does this matchup look like? How does it break down in a vacuum, Simon?
The most important thing is for Calligaro to get threats on the board that are awkward for Dagen to handle. So Young Pyromancer, I think, is the most important one. And then you want to make just enough tokens, just enough elementals that Dagen is forced to pull the trigger. Detention Sphere, Supreme Verdict, these kind of effects. And what you can't afford to happen is you empty your hand and a single Supreme Verdict basically puts you out of the game. Because
there are quite a number of cards in Dagen's deck that are very, very good against the go-wide strategy of Young Pyromancer and friends, whether it's Detention Sphere to clean up those tokens, or even multiple copies of the 2-1 out there. And Supreme Verdict also just really good against the way that the Pyromancer deck essentially only has one way to finish the game, and that's with creatures.
Yes, with creatures, but like I said, it's actually relatively easy to deploy wave after wave of these creatures. You're going wide with Lingering Souls, with a Young Pyromancer, you're refueling with Bedlam Reveler. So that's actually going to be the key strategy for Calligaro if his mana base doesn't get completely destroyed here early on.
Spreading Seas is doing its best impression of a Stone Rain here, turning that Blackleaf Cliffs into an island. So that means that Calligaro, as it stands, has no access to black mana and not too much access to red either. A real issue. I mean, Spreading Seas is already pretty good against some multicolour blue decks, but against a non-blue deck, it can be a real hoser.
Yeah. Calligaro, by the way, was quite fortunate that Collective Brutality even found something in Dagen's hand. He only had that Cryptic Command.
No Supreme Verdicts or anything else here, but a Thoughtseize is going to be able to take the pick of the litter here. And immediately, Simon, what are you zoning in on to have a look at here?
Depending on your hand, I think you have to take Spreading Seas. If you don't have a fetch land in hand, you cannot afford to be stuck on blue-red for the next few turns.
Looks like Calligaro may be able to navigate those choppy waters, however, as the Spreading Seas remains uncontested.
In this case, I would assume that Calligaro is holding more duels or fetch lands in his hand. Otherwise, I think actually Vendilion Clique, not such a great card against Mardu Pyromancer. You want to be using those debt removal spells anyway against control, and Lingering Souls really, really good at stopping Clique beatdown.
I mean, Clique is just one of those great versatile cards that generally is good against the modern format as a whole. It's a nice hasty beater. It can play some silly buggers with what's going on in your opponent's hand, which isn't an effect we see often in blue. But against Lingering Souls, against decks that you're trying to deaden their removal, it can be a bit of a liability.
Just like Collective Brutality on the other side of the battlefield, Vendilion Clique is a card in game one which it's almost impossible to be really bad. It's just too efficient of a card for that. It's also never going to be that amazing MVP that will just crush your opponent. But as a role player, as a game one card, I really like it.
As a utility card. And of course, coming out of the board as well, often we see it doing a lot of work in situations where, the opponents are going a bit lower on removal and finding other ways to attack you. And I mean, a 3-1 is very fragile, but can often get the job done. However, Colligan's command here for Laurent Calligaro is going to bring back a Bedlam Reveler, make Dagen discard a card. He chucks away a Path to Exile now. We'll see if Dagen can keep those lands coming critical for the control deck to hit its land drops.
Yeah, but he found actually quite a lot of lands, and of course, that double Spreading Seas draw with 2 lands is actually very likely to hit land drops 3 and 4. I'm still a bit concerned for Calligaro's mana here. He has a mountain and a swamp, but if there is one more Spreading Seas, it actually becomes really difficult to cast those Bedlam Revelers.
Usually that Sacred Foundry is a simple one-off, just to cast the front half of Lingering Souls, not the main game plan of decks like Calligaro. Is this a Lightning Bolt going upstairs? I guess we've got a Bedlam Reveler coming in pretty soon here. Oh, it's a Hazoret the Fervent, looking to empty that hand out nice and quickly. And Dagen has nothing to say about it except to pass to Exile. So, easy game. And Calligaro now should be able to settle his mana issues once and for all.
Yeah, a bit surprised about the sequencing. I don't quite understand why you would cast the Lightning Bolt before Hazoret.
To attack.
Well, but then if Hazoret gets countered, you just wasted your Lightning Bolt.
Oh, I see. So cast the Hazoret, see if it resolves, and then
before combat
bolt. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe Calligaro just looking to really snap off those Boltskis nice and quickly. Empty out his hand. I know the Bedlam Reveler, the final card in hand, so he's going to want to get rid of it at some stage anyway.
Yeah, that's true. He was banking on that anyway. Oh, Field of Ruin. It does become a bit interesting here for both players.
Field of Ruin, one of the most important pieces of technology in pushing blue-white control back to the top, because it does play a very aggressive mana denial game here, Simon. Between Field of Ruin and Spreading Seas, it does really mess with what the opponent is up to, especially if they're playing these 4-color lists, these 5-color lists. These cards can do a real number.
Yep, and that's actually why I expected Calligaro to take the second Spreading Seas from Dagen.
Dagen may still be able to put Calligaro's mana base under siege here. Those islands not doing a whole lot of work, but Bedlam Reveler is here now. Refresh the hand of Calligaro here. Does have to discard a card. Dagen with the response. It's going to be a Logic Knot.
Okay, that's for a natural 3, so every card he delves will add 1 more to that.
So 4, 5, 6 now. Looks like he's got 4 mana available. He'll have to do it for 5. So Logic Knot, exiling 2 cards in addition to the 3 mana that was tapped to pay for the X cost. And that means that Bedlam Reveler isn't going to resolve.
Of course, what you see here is Dagen keeping as many instants as possible in his graveyard for Snapcaster Mage.
Mm-hmm. That's why we saw that Vendilion click hit the exile zone. Logic Knot has been a really important piece of the puzzle here in blue control decks moving forward. Yesterday, Simon, we discussed the fact that Mana Leak just doesn't really cut the mustard anymore.
Oh, Logic Knot is amazing. If you don't have trouble with the double blue, it's probably as close to a counterspell as we're getting in Modern.
Yeah, it really is, and especially when your deck is full of fetch lands, Fields of Ruin, ways to put cards in the graveyard, as well as cheap interaction in the form of things like Path to Exile. Usually it's not too difficult to to cast a Logic Knot for as effectively a hard counter a lot of the time.
It also scales really nicely over the course of
the game goes along, unlike Mana Leak, which is great on turn 2 and horrific thereafter. Serum Vision's another way to fuel those Logic Knot delve, the delve fuel there.
And a little bit of a nice sequencing there to pick up on. First you sacrifice Field of Ruin to get the shuffle out of the way, and then you draw and scry with Serum Visions. Because if you do it the other way around, you are not getting the benefits of scrying.
So Dagen now under siege from these 2 spirit tokens, clipping him over the ear hole for 2 damage. And it's back to the Frenchman.
I'm really not the biggest fan of Lingering Souls in the current format.
Really?
It's just, whenever I've seen it this weekend, I felt like the opponents could mostly ignore it. At least in this scenario where we have 2 spirit tokens being almost irrelevant on the battlefield.
You know Dagen's going to be able to find an answer for it eventually. 3 mana now, and it's a Liliana of the Veil. That's something that Dagen will have to answer at some point here. Looks like it's going to resolve and discard a detention seal. Ooh. That is an awkward discard there for Dagen, because that answers the Liliana. And of course he did play that Flooded Strand earlier. He could have held it to play around a Liliana, because he didn't know one was necessarily coming down.
And just as I said, these Lingering Souls tokens look really, really powerful now that they're protecting Liliana from Celestial Colonnade.
So Calligaro has managed to craft a board state where he does look to be pretty significantly favoured here, Simon.
Yeah, the thing we have to discuss is how good is threatening a Liliana Ultimate against a control deck with about 7 lands in play, 7-8 lands in play.
Flooded Strand, the draw and the play here for Dagen as the Celestial Colonnade comes across, and it immediately is chumped by the Spirit Token, as you said. Liliana goes up, discards a Terminate.
Not a bad card.
Calligaro is having a second thoughts about that. He's got another card in hand, but I think he forgot that he had it.
Yeah, maybe realizing that Terminate would have been really good against Celestial Colonnade.
Well, too late now. Too little, too late. Maybe holding something like a Lightning Bolt. No, it's a Faithless Looting.
Okay, that was definitely a suboptimal sequence.
Blood Moon the discard, in addition to a Young Pyromancer. Calligaro, 2 cards in hand.
So he just cast the Faithless Looting on 0 cards in hand?
Sorry, 0 cards in hand. What am I talking about?
Yeah, that's not how you want to use it.
So it was just mill yourself for 2.
Yeah, and Blood Moon would have been kind of nice, I think.
Dear. Calligaro there could have certainly made a better show of things through that turn. A couple of unfortunate missteps, and this Celestial Colonnade once again.
Yeah, it looks like he confused himself
Spirit
with the discard, and then followed it up with the next mistake by casting the Faithless Looting completely unprompted.
Maybe he read PV's article where it's better to make 1 mistake or 2 mistakes that everyone knows about than 1 mistake that only you know about. He's like, oh, I made the first mistake. I now need to make the second one.
Okay, maybe he didn't quite get
the thrust of the article, because we also all knew about the first mistake as well. In any case, this is where Calligaro is right now. He's casting another Faithless Looting from the bin. With the card in hand, this one is set to make a little bit more of a difference.
He also did find Lingering Souls. So now Pierre is in danger of losing half of his board to Liliana. And I think you just have to basically slam that as soon as you can.
Calligaro is so ready for that block there with the Spirit Token.
How greedy do you want to be? Do you want to wait 1 more turn?
Oh yeah.
That's just your default answer, right?
What? How much
if
greed?
If the question involves greed?
Oh yes, absolutely. Get all that value. If you get punished, you just claim your opponent was lucky. And if you do it well, I mean, Magic is either a very, very, in my view, it's either a very, very skill-intensive game or a very, very variance-based game.
Depends on who wins.
And it depends on who. Exactly right, Simon. It depends on who wins.
Okay, I like Laurent's conservative line here.
Okay, Dagen. Just wax all those cards in front of Calligaro. Just the old quintuple Stone Rain here for Calligaro. He's going to put the Colonnades in 1 pile, you would imagine.
I think it would actually be nice to ask Dagen if he wants 4 Colonnades or 7 lands.
Or everything else.
Yeah, because multiple Colonnades are actually redundant.
Yeah, you only want 1.
You get diminishing returns. But if you give your opponent this choice, I think you're actually... Well, they're not happy to lose 5 lands, but it's not all that bad.
So Dagen keeps the par with all the basics in case Calligaro is going to play another Blood Moon. That makes a lot of sense there. Heads up thinking from Dagen as he finds another land off the top, and this time Celestial Colonnade is going to eat a Fatal Push. Funny to think about Celestial Colonnade being eaten by a Fatal Push, but of course it's converted mana cost is 0, so it can still get done.
That's actually one of the reasons why your favorite card in Magic got a lot weaker. Fatal Push deals with it, and previously cards like Lightning Bolt didn't accomplish that.
Abrupt Decay. None of these cards could deal with them. Here's a Jace Architect of Thought. This is a nice way for Dagen to start to get back in the game here. 3 cards off the top. Oh, and a Gideon amongst them as well. Easy split here for Calligaro and an easy pick for Dagen as he takes Gideon Jura into hand.
The Liliana Ultimate did almost nothing.
It did very, very little.
Calligaro, I think, would have needed that Blood Moon that he was forced to discard.
Now, we've actually just had something pointed out to us here. Rather interestingly, one of the things that Calligaro forgot to take into account with when splitting those piles, and Dagen as well, was those spreading seas.
Oh,
those spreading seas should have been in one of those piles here.
You're right. I also completely missed it.
Yeah.
It is an easy thing to miss.
Yeah.
But what is that? That's just...
So I guess I really don't know the way to handle that from a rules perspective here, but those spreading seas should have been put in a pile, and Dagen should have had to select which one they were in. But I mean, do we stop this match to get a judge to sort this out? It's just far too late, right?
I think it's too late. It's thankfully also not too relevant, although it would have definitely made a difference.
Calligaro is flush with black sources now and has ways to deploy all of his black cards. But all the same, yeah, that is awkward stuff here. Sphinx's revelation from that search for his counter. Dagen here is beginning to find his way back into this game in a major way. Remand is a pretty relevant piece of interaction, although it does cycle. We are actually going to investigate this situation with the spreading seas, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you so much for your help in pointing that out to us there in the chat. We do appreciate you staying on top of things. Ever vigilant, our noble chat warriors, the greatest players, the greatest judges.
They basically never miss anything.
They never miss anything, and they're always correct. So Dagen now with a massive Sphinx's revelation here. Calligaro, could be in a position to just scoop him up in response to this massive Sphinx's revelation, a play pattern we see quite often. But right now we're going to have a judge deal with this situation with the Liliana of the Vale on those two spreading seas. It's obviously the correct way to play it, although we're pretty far gone from it being a position where we can rewind effectively.
No, I think both of these players just missed it. It was an honest mistake. If Pierre had noticed it, he would have been responsible to remind his opponent. You can't resolve that kind of ability partially, and now the only real question is what the fix is. I could see things just staying the way they are, and you are assuming that Calligaro put those two spreading seas in the pile that Dagen kept, which is of course not what would have happened, but it's close enough.
So we'll see how things are resolved here, but it looks like this Sphinx's revelation is going to pop off all the same. Bedlam Reveler now drawing 3 cards, refueling for Calligaro. I mean, is he out of it here? Dagen has half a squillion cards in hand. He's got all the resources and all the mana in the world.
I think he didn't accomplish his main goals. He didn't put on enough pressure. This Blood Moon is very, very late to the party, although still impactful, and ultimately I don't see how he's going to present those waves of attackers that I mentioned. Now I think he's actually overextending a bit. He's just saying, look, I hope you don't have a planes to Supreme Verdict me.
Here is everything I have. What can you do about it? Supreme Verdict in hand for Dagen, but no second white source under that Blood Moon here. He's got a lot of mountains in play, but none of them are helping him too much.
Blue-white control actually quite heavy on basic.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's maybe a bit unfortunate that there's no second planes.
Playing 9 basics generally. Well, anywhere between 7 and 9 I would say is normal. Perhaps 8 is the average.
Many more islands though. The ratio is usually 2 to 1.
Yeah. Yep. That's what we often see. And Dagen very cannily actually after that Liliana split, he took the pile with the most basics.
Yeah, like I said, I think I wasn't super happy with the split that we saw. With the Liliana split, I think that could have used some more thought.
So just 4. Oh, you're saying just 4 colonnades against?
4 colonnade against the rest. There was definitely one option to heavily consider. I think getting rid of 4 colonnades in a single turn is huge.
It's pretty big.
And on the other hand, if you're already holding the fatal push, you might want to deviate from that. You can also say it's basics against the rest. You know, you have a lot of interesting options with Liliana, and this kind of 50-50 split was, I don't think it was backbreaking enough.
It gave the most upside to Dagen. It made it the easiest for him to make the correct decision.
You didn't put the burden of complexity on your opponent, and that's something that I'm always looking for. Just giving them the tough choices to make.
So Dagen is going to do another little mini fact or fiction here from his Jace Architect of Thought. Easy split, easy pick. Once again, Detention Sphere, a nice one in the face of doubled Young Pyromancer.
Also potentially against Blood Moon, because you need to be able to cast that mass removal.
So you think just Blood Moon, Detention Sphere, the Blood Moon, and then just Supreme Verdict the rest away.
Calligaro very helpfully pointing out that he could take 2 Young Pyromancers, but Dagen with the superior play.
Yep, taking that 3-for-1.
Supreme play.
And Dagen finding the line with the greatest upside there, Simon, and you're wise to find it as well. Inquisition of Kozilek, and Dagen says, pick your poison, my friend.
And that's game 2.
Right click, concede game. That is enough for Calligaro as we head into game number 2 after Dagen very tidily cleaned that one up. even after a Liliana ultimate, Simon, we often characterise Liliana as being very excellent in drawn-out games due to her back-breaking ultimate here, but Dagen just shook it off like it ain't no thing.
He got to keep 5 lands, and he could just follow it up with a very, very powerful Jace. So that, I think, is what happened. We saw Calligaro flood out and not really use his resource, his cards, in the best possible way.
Yeah, not the best lines of play taken from Calligaro at any point during that game, and I like the way that Dagen kept a cool head. He stayed in it. He realised that it was his game to win if he could just keep himself in the game. And I think, I mean, you know, we were sort of joking about it before, but honestly, I think keeping Liliana around would have been more impactful. Knowing that it wasn't really under pressure, given the Lingering Souls tokens.
Especially if you're planning to split the way that Calligaro did.
Yes.
You know, it's very subtle things that if you win the game, you might just say, oh, I won, I must have made pretty decent decisions. But when you go back and we watch these kind of games, I think the level of technical play on Dagen's side was just a step above.
Yeah, it really was. I think that's
a level above.
It's a great observation.
That's not to say that Calligaro played badly, but if you invest a little bit more time into really thinking through how the game is going to progress, what is your winning game state that you want to accomplish?
What is your path to victory here? And I think Dagen did a much better job of visualizing that, seeing how he won. He knew he had to weather the storm with this Liliana. I think that had he had the option to choose how Calligaro played that turn, he would have also got the Liliana off the board. And when Calligaro made that 5-5 split, that just wasn't... It didn't put Pierre Dagen to task. It didn't, as you said, it didn't put that burden of complexity on him. It made him pick between two equally bad options rather than letting him figure out what the best one was.
And equally bad also means equally good.
Yes,
so
great
effectively
point.
He just realized, okay, basics are more valuable than non-basics. That's what I'm going to take. But if you give even a great player, even a Pro Tour finalist, if you give them the choice between colonnades or basics or colonnades or lands, then suddenly they have to really consider what is the more valuable asset as this game goes along. And I think that would have been at least very interesting to watch. Of course, it wouldn't have guaranteed a win for Calligaro in any way.
Well, we're still waiting for results to come in from around the tables here as we head toward the top 8 on MTG Red Zone. You're in the booth with Riley Knight, and joining me, of course, it is Simon Gertzen, Pierre Dagen and Laurent Calligaro on your screen. We've seen Dagen get up in game number 1. I mean, things change a little bit post-board, of course. It's very important to note that the Mardu Pyromancer deck can, cut all those fatal pushes, cut all of those terminates, those dread balls and what have you, and start to bring in cards that are a little bit more impactful. How does the texture of the match change once we hit the sideboards here?
Mardu Pyromancer is going to be a lot better after sideboarding. Almost no dead cards means that this is going to be a highly interactive game. I don't know the exact sideboard of Calligaro, but this should be interesting to watch. One card to still look out for is, of course, Celestial Colonnade, because it's always tricky if you board out too many answers to the Colonnade and suddenly you can't Fatal Push it anymore because they're in your sideboard. By the way, Dreadborn not as bad as it looks.
No, certainly
Planeswalkers, dealing with Jace or Gideon for 2 mana is actually quite good.
Very clean way to do it. Obviously a lot worse against something like a Celestial Colonnade, but it's a good way, a nice, clean and mana-efficient way to deal with things like Planeswalkers. Almost always trading up on mana Dreadball when it's facing off against a Planeswalker.
The best card for Dagen, I believe, has to be Rest in Peace, because Mardu Pyromancer relies on those Faithless Lootings and those Bedlam Revelers to really go out of control. Lingering Souls the same way. And if you remember how I described how this game should go for Mardu Pyromancer, these waves of attackers having 3, 4, 5 creatures in play and then refueling, that never happened.
No.
That was really nowhere to be seen.
There was one point at which Calligaro just dumped his entire hand onto the battlefield, and it was dealt with very tightly by
punished
Dagen.
In the worst possible way as well.
Yeah, in one turn cycle. So what the Mardu Pyromancer deck wants to do, as you mentioned, Bedlam Reveler is a key piece of that puzzle. You want to deploy your threats, play a Reveler, refuel, recharge, and then sit there and wait for your opponent to deal with the threats that are on the board, redeploy, and get back amongst it. Calligaro unable to do that in game number 1. We'll see if fortune favours him any more favourably in game number 2. Here at GP Lyon, you are watching the Pro Show with me, it's Riley Knight, and with him, that's Simon Gertzen. It's great to have you along, my friends. Let's get underway with round number 13, game 2 between these two players here. Looks like an Inquisition of Kozilek's going to open up the account here.
Yeah, Pierre with 4 blue cards, really nice curve as well. Serum Visions into Snapcaster Mage, into... Serum Visions into Spreading Seas, into Vendilion Click, and then a Snapcaster Mage for later.
Just the icing on this very, very delicious cake. Is he going to aggressively search out basics with those flooded strands here?
I absolutely expect that, yes. He also has a Fields of Ruin, so he does get a basic from that as well. Once you know that you're playing against a Blood Moon deck, it's actually not that hard to play around it. At least that's how I feel. If it's not also running Simian Spirit Guide or other mana accelerants, a turn 3 Blood Moon, you always have time to deploy 2 fetch lands.
Serum Visions now from Pierre Dagen. The thing is, Blood Moon isn't great against the mana base of white-blue control in the sense that they have a huge number of basics. It serves another role, doesn't it? Well,
it does serve another role, but you're also playing the card as a oops, I win 3 mana enchantment. In some matchups, that's exactly what it is. Against blue-white control, it's a nuisance, but it's nothing that the opponent will care about. Okay.
Looks like we're going to have a judge call here because Dagen accidentally played the second land on turn number 2, immediately took it back as it came back, but Laurent Calligaro is snapping off that judge call here.
Yes, and I think that's what Laurent should do. I think these kind of missteps should be recorded.
Should be tracked.
Should be tracked.
Yeah.
Not saying that there was anything intentional about it.
No.
Sometimes if you have a tough turn 1 Serum Visions or Thoughtseize, you just make this kind of mistake. But of course, it's important that we track these kind of things.
I think it would be very difficult to angle shoot the turn 1 extra land given your opponent was on the play.
Well, but we've seen more extraordinary things happen in Magic, even at the highest competitive level. It's actually something that bothers me a bit. Everybody at home always assumes that these players play perfectly over 15 rounds, but that's just impossible. Magic is too complex of a game for that.
Goblin Rabblemaster is out of the board now for Laurent Calligaro, and this is one of the ways that this deck tussles with big mana decks. In addition to put extra pressure on nice and early, this technology is a little bit outdated, but it looks like it might be coming full circle now, as this is a card that hits very hard and very quickly.
I love it.
You're into it.
I haven't seen that, but that's something as a control player myself. It's so scary if you didn't expect it. You were sitting there with Negate, thinking, what's going to happen? Blood Moon, no problem. Planeswalker, no problem. And suddenly you're facing, I don't even know how much damage. That's 6 damage next turn?
Yeah, no, 7. 7 damage next turn. Oh, no, sorry, it hits for 1, then 6. That's
doesn't
right.
count itself, right?
No. So another Goblin here getting in, and we can see Calligaro very, very cleverly playing around that Vendilion Click. He knows it's in Pierre Dagen's hand. And Dagen is going to have to find something here to deal with this Rabblemaster, young Pyromancer as well. And this, for me, is overcommitting.
Is it necessary? Is the real question, right? Because young Pyromancer is an army in a can. Okay, I think if you have a Thoughtseize, that's probably a reasonable line to take. I still think it's unnecessary though, because I think Calligaro might even know about the negate in Dagen's hand.
And if Dagen has or rips a Supreme Verdict in the next turn, I mean, then, yeah, it's looking very, very bad for him here for Calligaro, because he's just deployed 2 threats, 2 potentially game-winning threats to the board that can be answered with 1 card. I don't like this. I do like the inclusion of Goblin Rabblemaster. Many, many moons ago, of course, well, actually only 1 moon ago, Galan Falak Farsa made the top 8 of GP Santa Clara along with his team playing Mardu Pyro, or the top 4, I should say, playing Mardu Pyromancer, and he was a big fan of these post-board Goblin Rabblmasters. He said that they were critical in contesting these slower going big decks, white-blue control, Tron, Scapeshift, what have you, just as an early clock, just as a way to really put the pressure on nice and early, because generally Mardu Pyromancer, it scraps, it goes very low to the ground, it can, play out this grindy game and doesn't often win the game very quickly.
Yep.
And so this is one way to really turn up that heat. And
also just the surprise value after sideboarding. I think this is not something you expect out of every single Mardu Pyromancer deck. I'm actually a bit surprised that Dagen didn't want to negate that Thoughtseize. I think negate will have very limited usage here, and he kind of wants to draw those extra cards when he can. So I'm a bit surprised that he let his Vendilion Clique be discarded here.
Field of Ruin. Going after one of the Sacred Foundries here. Oh, no, it's going to be the Blackleaf Cliffs. Interesting to see 2 Sacred Foundries in the in Calligaro's list. Often they only play 1 white source in the main.
The format has become more hostile towards non-basics, especially with white-blue control on the rise. I think you need, if you really want to be casting white spells, also after sideboarding, you need at least 2 sources in your deck.
Yeah, and that's the thing. For Game 2, obviously, you're going to be wanting to cast Stony Silences, Rest in Peace, or not. Typically not Stony Silence, actually. Usually Wear Tear is the card of choice, given the enormously favourable affinity matchup that Pyromancer has.
Also the positive interaction with spells. You just want to trigger your Young Pyromancer and make your Bedlam Revelers cheaper, which Stony Silence doesn't do. Okay. I think Pierre might already be forced to Cryptic Command to tap down Calligaro's team.
Calligaro now in a very commanding position with a great board presence, but Dagen is in a position to continue to, well, just keep the pressure down. Looks like it'll be tap draw.
Not getting a basic planes here.
Does have one in hand. Presumably playing more than one. Does he need that extra blue source? I don't think so.
I didn't think so either, because what happens if you Cryptic to not take any damage this turn, and then Calligaro plays a Blood Moon? Then suddenly you cannot draw out of the situation anymore.
So Dagen cleverly waiting for that Goblin token to enter the battlefield before he taps down the team from Dagen, or from Calligaro there. Obviously not wanting to take an unnecessary extra 1 point of damage. And Dagen not punished. But still no verdict. Didn't find one with that Cryptic draw. Jace Architect of Thought, however, that's a very nice one. That's going to go straight upstairs here. Going to really take the teeth out of Calligaro's attack. Only that Goblin Rebel Master is going to be in a position to really apply some pressure.
And the Rebel Master is still super strong here. It does kill Jace. It does kill Jace on its own.
It's going to be attacking to 6.
Then Young Pyromancer will also deal 1.
So another Goblin token comes down. Even though these Goblins will only be attacking for 0, thanks to the Jace Architect of Thought ability, they will still pump up that Goblin Rebel Master, and that means that Jace is essentially just a speed bump in a blue cloak. So, Jace engages Pancake mode, flattened across the ground here. And Calligaro, is this a Blood Moon now? Oh no. Liliana the Last Hope, okay.
Planeswalkers or enchantments, not what Dagen wanted to see here. Although Liliana the Last Hope is really not that great.
Well, here's a Gideon. Off the top here for Dagen, but he's not going to cast it.
Oh, what does he have? Settle the Wreckage?
He's just blocking with a Celestial Colonnade? Surely not.
I mean, he does stay alive if he gets to block, but it's not the best proposition in the world, especially with the Rebel Master potentially just coming back.
And we talked, Simon, about the fact that you need to visualize your path to victory, and that is not a path to victory. That's a path to staying alive.
I mean, staying alive is the first step to victory, or at least it's mandatory. But your chances are not really increasing all that much.
He may just have to be on the old Snapcaster Mage, flashing back Cryptic Command.
Oh,
here.
Absolutely, yeah. That's definitely much better than trying to block with a Colonnade.
So here is Snapcaster Mage, flashback that Cryptic Command, tap draw. And once again, no damage coming through, so explains the holding up that 6 mana there. And now he has a blocker for that Goblin Rebel Master should it survive. No, of course, Liliana the Last Hope eating that for breakfast, lunch and tea. Thoughtseize, let's see what you're working with here. Gideon of the Trials. Obviously fails.
Also an interesting choice. I thought that you just want to deny your opponent's extra draw steps. So I would have expected Calligaro to take the Serum Visions. But with Hazaret as a follow-up, he actually knows that he's pretty well protected from Supreme Verdict.
And 2 cards off of that Serum Vision's immediately going downstairs here. And Dagen has found a Detention Sphere, but it's going to be Spreading Seas first.
I think he just wants to top deck into the Supreme Verdict, and even then, it's looking really grim against Hazaret.
Well, Dagen may not have a way forward here, and no, he's actually going to pack him up there because Calligaro was able to deploy enough threats that went unanswered by Dagen. An uncharacteristic draw, I would say, from Dagen. He didn't find the answers he needed. He's playing certainly a lot of them here, so an unfavourable draw. But certainly Calligaro, he smelt blood in the water and he went for it. He deployed a lot of threats and obviously was rewarded for it, as Dagen attempted to tread water for long enough to keep himself in it, but couldn't come up with the goods. So 1-1 now between Calligaro and Dagen. Calligaro perhaps feeling the pressure of the feature man cherry. We see him loosen up and limber up a little bit here. The Frenchman taking his time with sideboarding. See if he can reposition things now that he knows that those Goblin Rabble Masters are out to play.
Yeah, the problem with the Rabble Masters is really that it's one of the, just like Young Pyromancer, it's actually one of these few creatures that you have to deal with in another way than most other creatures. So, for example, we don't see a lot of counter magic for creatures in the modern format because most of them don't have this kind of long-term impact, like, for example, Goblin Rebel Master, Young Pyromancer, or Bedlam Reveler. So, Essence Scatter is nowhere to be seen because you can deal with cards like Tarmogoyf or Champion of the Parish much better by just playing more removal spells.
Couple of updates from around the table here as part of MTG Red Zone. I can tell you that Marcio Carvalho on table number 1 has beaten Miguel Castro 2-0, and Jean-Emmanuel Depraz on one of our back tables has also got a result. We're not going to reveal that one just yet, of course, because we may be checking in with that a bit later on. Moving further down the thing, Elliot Blondeau has got up against Emmanuel Faber. We have Matic Penko up against Mike Krasnitsky, and he's won 2-0 in favour of Penko there. Ricardo Sanchez 2-0 against Arthur Brosco. And Malta Smits, the modern specialist from Berlin, has beaten Dennis Wiedmann 2-1. More results as they come to hand. I've just been told that Jin Liu has beaten Javier Del Pino Povedano 1-2 in favour of Jin Liu. And of course, all of these players, a lot of them at least, at X and 2, Simon. So keeping that dream of a top 8 finish here at GP Lyon alive.
Yep, all in the running for top 8. Most likely being forced to win out, maybe with the potential to ID intentional draw in round 15, the final round of the tournament, of the Swiss part of the tournament.
Have to see how fortune favours them, however, as we've still got quite a number of rounds to go before we do reach a conclusion here and finalise those players that will be contesting the 5-figure payday that comes with the GP victory. Of course, all of the top 8 will be heading off to the Pro Tour. No worries about that. But if you're in it for a penny, you're in it for a pound, and these guys are going to want to take it all the way. There can be only one, however, and we're hoping to have your company as we crown a champion later on today, as Sunday afternoon moves into Sunday evening here in sunny Lyon. I say sunny, didn't even look out the window, immediately punished for it. It is overcast, grey and miserable, as you would expect in Europe in winter. 29 and sunny back in Australia, but hey, who misses that sort of stuff, Simon?
I don't.
No, of course not. It's nowhere I'd rather be.
Too much sun is not good for my tongue.
Your delicate porcelain skin, Simon. You're a delicate flower indeed. In more ways than one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have to agree.
Have to agree. That's fair.
As opposed to you.
Oh no, mate.
Robustness.
Robust. Rough and ready.
But that's when you're born in a country where everything is out to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory. You know, we get taught at a very young age to be afraid of more or less everything that moves in us. Not afraid. Afraid is the wrong word.
Cautious.
Cautious. Wary. Exactly right. So, let's see how these players go now. Post-board game number 3. Both of them had the chance to put the finishing touches on their deck as we head into the very final game of this match between these two players. Both of them have got a little bit of breathing room before they are out of contention here for top 8. Although, what does Dagen look like with an X2-1 record?
Not happy. Over 2,000 players. X2-1 is not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee to make it. Even if he loses here, if he loses round 13, he will absolutely have to win 2 more, and then he might still miss, on tiebreakers or just barely the cut to top 8.
So he's really in it to win it here, Pierre Dagen. Down to 6, unfortunately, though, the Frenchman here. Interesting shuffle technique as well. He's doing all sorts of weird... It's like he's shuffling a cube.
Yeah, but I think his deck is also probably double-sleeved at least.
Triple sleeve, perhaps.
Maybe quad sleeve.
The quad sleeve, yeah. Yeah. Pierre Dagen is not here to muck around.
We did have that one time in the feature match.
Without a hint of irony, we have seen quad sleeve decks, and it was bananas.
It was majestic.
Perfect sleeves inside, even more perfect fit sleeves, and then honking great surfboards on the outer layer. Obviously not wanting any nicks, scrapes or bends on those cards. We move now with the opening of the account with a search for As-Canter for Pierre Dagen. You're nodding in approval, Simon?
Oh, no, that's a great start. Of course, you will not have counter magic up this turn, but search for As-Canter fuels basically everything you want to be doing. You get cards in your graveyard, you get card selection. Later on, you get that super good value land As-Canter flipped. And if you want to tab out, turn 2 is the way to do it on the play.
So, logic not the pick now from that Inquisition of Kozilek. We can see Vendilion Click, Detention Sphere, and a Field of Ruin remaining here for Dagen. He's going to have a look at the top card of his library and slam it straight into the bin, and that's a nice one there. He's basically faded a blank draw.
That's actually really cool about Search for As-Canter. Even though it's legendary, its ability makes it a bit less likely that you draw multiple redundant copies.
Search for As-Canter has been pretty impactful in Modern recently. It's made a real name for itself as one of the card advantage engines of choice in blue decks. There aren't a lot of effective ways to get ahead on cards in Modern right now. We saw the unbanning of Ancestral Vision didn't really get blue decks over the line, and Search for As-Canter certainly changed that. Next week, however, things are set to change, Simon.
No, it will have to compete with Jace the Mind Sculptor, and of course that's pretty big competition. On the other hand, the difference between 2 and 4 mana is pretty huge as well.
I think Search for As-Canter works very well with Jace. I think playing Jace the Mind Sculptor with extra lands, which is what Search for As-Canter ultimately will end up as, is a great position to be in.
Yes and no, because you don't have an arbitrary amount of slots for card advantage in your blue decks. It would be nice to play all the card advantage cards in the world, but that's just not possible in a highly proactive, aggressive format like Modern.
Liliara of the Veil sent below decks by this Vendilion Click here, and it looks like Calligaro is going to fetch before drawing a card?
No, the
card is in front of him. Excuse me, I missed that.
Was actually in the draw step, so Calligaro drew from the click trigger and then immediately went to his main phase.
Okay, all right, that makes good sense there, and I did miss the face down black sleeve card there right in front of Calligaro there, because that would not be possible. You cannot shuffle away before drawing with that the click from that trigger there. Goblin Rabblemaster comes along with a little friendo here and is going to start to take Pierre Dagen to task. Bolt, what am I talking about? Definitely not a lightning bolt on the top of his library. It's an island. Those cards very similar. They both have the letter L in them. Dagen with something of an awkward hand, Simon. Detention Sphere, Gideon of the Trials, no way to cast them. That Plains he's going to search out right now is going to change things a little bit.
Detention Sphere is a nice backup, though, because it means that Calligaro cannot just slam the second Rabblemaster. I think, and Calligaro knows about the Detention Sphere, which might actually be to Dagen's advantage, because he will... It will restrict his lines of play.
So both Calligaro and Dagen now going to hand their respective decks back over. Let's see what Calligaro can bring to bear in this turn. A key turn for him. He's able to put some pressure on Dagen while the Frenchman continues to find his feet. Looks like we're going to have a hand disruption spell here.
Oh, that could be huge, because then a second Rabblemaster could actually come down here.
Inquisition of Kozilek, that can clear the way for the Detention Sphere here.
Pretty easy choice, I would say.
An awkward hand remaining here for Dagen. That Spell Queller is a little bit too late to have the real impact you want it to. And Gideon of the Trials uncastable off of that single white. So Calligaro pulls further and further ahead here. Not attacking with the Goblin Rabblemaster into that Vendilion click.
If you had a second one to cast, you probably would have attacked with the Rabblemaster, I think, but it's not entirely clear.
So Thoughtseize going to remove that Spell Queller just to really drive the nail into the coffin for Calligaro here.
What Dagen does get is he gets to flip Escanta. So not sure if that's good enough, but it is something.
Looks like a Field of Ruin on top of his library there. You can get a great look at it, however. Gideon of the Trials the only card in hand.
Correction, he only gets it flipped if he puts the card into the graveyard.
So Dagen with a tricky decision, it would seem. If he bins this card, he gets to flip Ascanta, but if he does not, looks like he's going to, and we just did not get to see what that card is.
I think you were right. I think it was Field of Ruin.
Maybe we can see if we can get that graveyard shifted so we can see what's going on there. Seeing as he's trailed it off the screen there, tantalizing and teasing the viewer, Flooded Strand.
That Mardu Pyromancer deck is just looking really beautiful once again.
Oh yeah,
we saw it do tremendously well in the hands of Jerry Thompson, of course. But here you can see that this is actually a deck that's not easy for a lot of decks to handle.
I don't think that was a Field of Ruin.
No, it was a Path to Exile.
It was a Path to Exile.
Quite the potent card if you're trying to beat a Rabblemaster.
But he knows that there's the second one for Calligaro as well, so maybe it's not quite enough and he had to dig further for something like a Supreme Verdict. Well, Gideon of the Trials is here now. Going to shut down that Goblin Rabblemaster for the time being.
Some relief, a little bit of relief. But I think you really want to start using that as Escanta, maybe finding Path to Exile, the card you declined to keep on top of your deck.
So Dagen, hellbent, sitting behind a couple of 3-cost permanents.
By the way, Vendilion Click, we talked about how it's never bad in game 1. In game 2, against these token strategies, I really don't like it.
So Dagen is going to go reaching now. Have a look at the top card of his library. What can he find? Colligan's Command. It's going to have to be something special now because it's being discarded in his draw step here.
Path would be tremendous. Cryptic?
We're going to see an activation of the Sunken Ruin here, which is going to at least give him another option to discard something else. Cryptic in hand, Supreme Verdict as well. Dagen is going to take that Supreme Verdict off of the search for Escanta, or the Sunken Ruin, and presumably immediately discard the other card, which is a Celestial Colonnade. 2 damage redirected to Gideon of the Trials, and now Calligaro can really unload on Dagen with these goblins, but you'd imagine they're all going away next turn. So an attack with the Goblin Rabblemaster, knowing that it's going to be Supreme Verdicted.
Of course, against 4 goblins, Dagen might actually decide that he wants to not cast Supreme Verdict.
Oh, especially when he draws a Detention Sphere off the top, Simon. Yeah, look at this. That's a very tidy answer, as all those goblins are gone for good now, and Calligaro is going to have to play into this Supreme Verdict. He has no choice.
Dagen is somehow turning this around with the power of Escanta and a few timely top decks. I think he's still very much on the back foot here, but I think now there's actually a chance to draw out this game long enough.
So, Terminate costs 4 mana, but still gets the job done, no worries. I guess it's a little bit better as it got rid of the goblin that Calligaro had also brought, and you got to do what you got to do. And Calligaro also will be ruining the fact that Vendilion Click did its job so well, Simon. Not only did it send that Liliana of the Veil packing, it also cleared the way from that Goblin Rabblemaster, allowing Dagen to make the most out of a card like Detention Sphere.
Calligaro is holding Rare Tear. Currently, it doesn't have any use because the Detention Sphere only got rid of tokens. But imagine if Detention Sphere ever takes out multiple Pyromancers or, for example, Rabblmasters, then Rare Tear can be absolutely backbreaking.
So Inquisition after a young Pyromancer here. And these players drawing very close to time. They have 1 minute extra to the 1 minute that you can see on your screen. And Gideon Jura, yes, here we go from Pierre Dagen. He is switching gears quickly, Simon.
Huge draw there. Just enough mana to cast it. protects his life total. Does it get him closer to winning, though? He already has a draw. I think a second draw would be quite terrible for him.
Lingering Souls, 3 more tokens here for Calligaro. All of them 1-1s, 2 in the air. Back to Dagen. Excuse me. The problem here is these guys are going to go to time, and Dagen is not the deck who can playing a deck that can close it out quickly. Path to exile the draw. It's going to be on the young Pyromancer, preventing Calligaro from getting any more value from his 2-1 there. So young Peasy's World Tour has ended.
That's a good draw, of course. You get rid of the Pyromancer, you continue ticking up Gideon, and you get to activate Ascanta. Can't really ask for much more.
So as you can see there, the clock has been updated to reflect the fact that these players have 1 minute extra time from an earlier judge call. Calligaro now playing very, very swiftly indeed. So there's better stuff here. Seeing these players looking to get a result out of this game. And therefore this match, is it going to be a Liliana of the Veil here? Or Liliana of the Last Hope, I think. Gideon down to 3. And here is the Last Hope of Innistrad. Liliana of the Veil sent to the bin. Goblin Rabblemaster brought back to the hand. Oh no, considers instead the Bedlam Reveler. What are you looking at here, Simon?
I'm looking at the instant and sorcery count in Calligaro's graveyard, and I couldn't quite make it out. It's a bit messy. But if Reveler is a cheap card, then it is the better choice than the Rabblemaster.
Looks like the Reveler was the pick here for Calligaro. Back to Dagen. These players drawing very, very close to time being called. Cryptic Command revealed to Ascanta the Sunken Ruin as Pierre Dagen enters into what is going to be one of the very last turns of this game, and indeed this match here, with only 10 seconds on the clock. We're going to get into extra turns very quickly here. And Gideon goes after Liliana, the Last Hope. Flooded Strand, Cryptic Command in hand for Dagen. He's going to be able to counter that Bedlam Reveler. Turn number 1 of extra turns. Is there a way for Dagen to win, or does he just need to keep himself in it here?
He can't win. He has just 2 attack steps left. Opponent is on 16 with a lot of blockers. So Dagen cannot win this game. However, he can very likely prevent Calligaro from winning. He has Cryptic Command now, Gideon activation next turn, and then there's only 1 more attack step for Calligaro to deal 11 points, which is a ton.
So, tap draw for Dagen, finds an island. Calligaro can deploy that Bedlam Reveler should he so choose.
There are some really nice top decks here as well. If you find Dreadbore, getting rid of that Gideon would be huge. Don't know if there will be a Lightning Bolt still in the deck after sideboarding.
So where Tear hits the bin in addition to another card from that Bedlam Reveler. 3 freshies here for Calligaro. Faithless looting, the other card discarded. And Calligaro on turn 1 of extra turns. We've only got 4 turns remaining after this. And Dagen, once again, his single-minded goal here, Simon, to keep that snoot above the waterline. Salvaging a draw at X1 and 2 is good enough for top 8?
Yeah, it's better than X2 and 1, but it doesn't help that much. If it's a clean cut to X and 2, it doesn't help you. Only helps you in the tiebreaker scramble against the other players with a single draw. But let's not sugarcoat it. Drawing twice in the Swiss portion, if it unintentionally, is not what you want to be doing at a GP.
Hallowed Fountain fetched with that Flooded Strand. Second last turn of the game. We're going to see him delay as much as he can. He's been listening to the heartbreaks, and he's ready to get it done here.
So what Calligaro managed here is actually a lot more to put a lot more pressure on the battlefield. The Bedlam Reveler with its prowess ability could actually be the deciding factor in extra turn 5, because if Calligaro manages to chain together instants and sorceries on his final turn of the match, then he might reach 10 points of power. Even if Dagen, for example, finds let's say a way to deal with the spirit tokens.
Negate in hand for Pierre Dagen. Of course, it's not going to do it against creature-based threats from Calligaro, and it will not do anything against prowess triggers as well. But here, at the moment, he's safe because Gideon is holding down the fort and preventing Calligaro from attacking Dagen.
Calligaro has to be a heavy favorite to still win this. There are tons of ways in which he can still find victory here through Gideon and through Pierre's life total. And Pierre still probably has to find something to stay alive next turn. But of course, there are ways, for example, to do that with 3-mana Gideon, another Gideon Jiro. I don't know if he plays multiple.
Young Pyromancer now the play here for Calligaro. And he's going to look to chain together some extra token. Oh no, Bedlam Reveler. So great against the negate that Pierre Dagen has in hand here. As he continues to deploy further threats, and he's going to have to do something very special, but he's done exactly what he needs to put himself in a position to win, Simon.
Yeah, I think you have to play the Reveler before combat. You have to see if there is a Dreadbore that you can draw. Cryptic Command.
Does he have a land to cast it here? Because if he has the 4th land, then that's it. There's no way for Calligaro to push things through. And he has a Glacial Fortress. That means this game is just a draw. It is a draw. As we go to turn number 5, Calligaro is not going to get an attack step where he can send any creatures. Is there a way here for Calligaro to do anything in the face of this Cryptic Command?
I don't think so. I also think that Dagen didn't tap. No, he tapped. It's fine. It's all fine. He has exactly the 8 mana that he needs.
After playing that Glacial Fortress here.
Yeah.
So turn number 5 for Calligaro.
Incredible.
The only way for Dagen to win this game is to F6 through the combat step. As Calligaro untaps, draws a card. I'd like to attack. Tap your creatures, draw a card, says Pierre Dagen. And these creatures are not going to be able to attack, which means that on turn 5 of extra turns, Calligaro, looking for that hitter, gets his second right. Can he find it? Discards 2 lands. He's got the 4 mana he needs to... no, doesn't have it. Doesn't have it, Simon. And things going to fizzle out here into a tame draw by the look of things. Once as soon as we've got this game resolved, players having a little bit of a discussion about how things might have turned out.
Pierre actually would have had the 3 mana Gideon as well. So he had quite a lot of ways to stay alive here, and
it's not a foregone conclusion.
No, it's also something that's always or too often ignored is the fact that once extra turns start, people play a lot differently. So Pierre Dagen was forced to just play this super defensive line. Calligaro was forced to play this super aggressive line. So this is not how the game would have proceeded without having a time limit.
To bring people up to speed who may not be familiar with the way that tournament magic works in this situation, the players right now are sitting and discussing whether one of them should concede to the other based on how the game would have continued and would have worked out. Now, this is not accounted for in the rules. It's not anything that is governed by hard and fast guidelines. Other than the fact that players cannot use any other extra information than what the contents of their hands, the battlefield and so forth, the graveyards. They cannot look at extra cards off the top of their libraries, and they cannot obviously negotiate some kind of deal here as to who's going to move forward and who's not based on anything other than just what is on the table here. It looks like, however, Dagen has gained a concession from Laurent Calligaro here at 11-1-1 now, after having resolved that situation, and ultimately those players deciding that Dagen would have been the one to run away with the game and therefore the match there, Simon. And as you mentioned, the texture of those games pretty heavily impacted by the fact that they were playing in extra turns.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also not only about who is going to win the match, but also, maybe these two players know each other. Maybe Dagen, for Dagen the draw is just really terrible. So, of course, he has to be happy with the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to take him any way it's served up to you. My friends, that is that for this round here at MTG Red Zone. Stick with us, however, on the other side of this break. We'll be back with Matej and Tim for more modern